I thought I knew my family. Then a single letter blew everything apart. My entire life was a lie. Hey Reddit, I'm typing this with shaking hands, trying to make sense of something that happened almost a year ago now, but still feels like yesterday. I've never been one to air my dirty laundry, especially not online, but I honestly have nowhere else to go. My friends don't know the full scope, and the people involved, well, they're the reason I'm here. I need to get this out, to see if anyone out there has ever experienced anything remotely close to this level of betrayal and upheaval. My name is David. I'm 32, and for as long as I can remember, I've had what I considered a perfectly normal, if a little quiet life. I grew up in a small town, the kind where everyone knows everyone's business, but my family was pretty insular. My parents, Mark and Helen, were loving, supportive, and seemed to have a rock-solid marriage. I was an only child, and while I sometimes wished for a sibling, I enjoyed the undivided attention. We had our traditions, our inside jokes, the whole 9 yards. Holidays were spent at my grandparents' house, my dad's parents, a sprawling old farmhouse that smelled perpetually of cinnamon and wood smoke. My mom's parents passed away when I was young, so that side of the family was a bit of a mystery, mostly just old photos and stories from my mom. My relationship with my parents was, to my mind, ideal. My dad was a steady, calm presence, a carpenter who taught me how to fix things around the house and had an encyclopedic knowledge of classic rock. My mom was the more expressive one, an elementary school teacher who encouraged my artistic side, always pushing me to read and explore. They were my anchors, my foundation. I trusted them implicitly. The cracks started to show, not in their relationship with each other, but in subtle ways I only recognize in hindsight. My mom had always been private about her past. Whenever I'd ask about her childhood, her eyes would get a faraway look, and she'd offer vague anecdotes that never quite painted a full picture. It wasn't secretive in an alarming way, more like a gentle deflection. I just assumed she didn't have a particularly exciting past, or perhaps she'd moved around a lot and didn't have deep roots to talk about. I accepted it. Why wouldn't I? She was my mom. The real earthquake hit after my grandmother, my dad's mom, passed away. She was 92 and it wasn't unexpected, but it still hit us hard. She was the matriarch, the glue that held the extended family together. After the funeral, my dad, looking utterly lost, asked me to help him clean out her attic. He'd lived in that house until he got married, and there were decades of accumulated memories up there. The attic was a labyrinth of dust motes dancing in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the grimy windows, boxes stacked high, covered in brittle newspapers from the 70s and 80s, old furniture draped in white sheets resembling ghosts. It was a treasure trove of nostalgia. We spent days up there, sifting through photo albums, old school reports, letters and mementos. Each item was a story, a connection to a past I was only just beginning to appreciate. One afternoon, while my dad was downstairs getting us some iced tea, I stumbled upon a small, unassuming wooden box tucked away behind a stack of moth-eaten blankets. It wasn't locked, and curiosity, as it often does, got the better of me. Inside, nestled amongst dried flowers and yellowed lace, was a bundle of letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. They weren't addressed to my grandmother. They were addressed to Helen, my mom's name. And then there was my father, Mark, my dad. Did he know? How could he not? The letters clearly indicated that my paternal grandparents were involved from the start. They'd taken Helen in, a pregnant stranger, and helped her fabricate a new life. This meant my dad either knew and went along with it, or he was just as clueless as I was. But if he was clueless, it made my grandparents' deception even more profound, even more insidious. How could they let their own son marry a woman who was hiding such a monumental secret, especially one that directly involved their grandson? My heart gave a strange lurch. Why would my mom's letters be here, in my grandmother's attic? Hidden away? I picked up the top one. The handwriting was neat, elegant, and unfamiliar. The postmark was from a town a couple of states away, a town I'd never heard my mom mention. I hesitated for a moment, feeling a pang of guilt for invading her privacy, but the curiosity was a strong current pulling me in. I untied the ribbon. The first letter started, "My dearest Helen, I hope this finds you well. It has been too long and I worry about you constantly. Please, reconsider. You don't have to do this alone. Come home." My brow furrowed. Do what alone? I scanned the next few lines. The tone was urgent, pleading. It spoke of a difficult decision, of a child who deserves to know their true family. A cold dread began to seep into my bones. Child, true family. This wasn't making sense. I picked up another letter, this one older, dated from a year before the first one. It was written in the same elegant hand. This one was more direct. "Helen, I understand your fear, but this secret will only hurt everyone in the end. He deserves to know, and so do you. You are loved, you are our daughter, and we want to be there for you and your baby." My baby? My mom had me in her late 20s. This couldn't be about me. Could it? I felt a sudden lightness in my head, like the blood was draining from it. I sat down abruptly on an old trunk, the dust motes swirling around me like tiny, mocking spirits. I read through the letters, one after another, my eyes darting, my mind racing. They were from a woman named Eleanor, addressed to Helen, my mother. They spanned a period of about 3 years, starting just before my birth and ending a couple of years into my childhood. The narrative that unfolded in those letters was nothing short of a bomb detonating in my reality. They spoke of a young Helen, pregnant, scared, and desperate to escape a difficult situation. They spoke of a man, not my father, who was the biological father of Helen's child. And they spoke of my grandparents, my dad's parents, taking Helen in, providing her with a new identity and helping her raise this child as their own grandson, never to reveal the truth. My dad's parents, my grandmother who had just passed away, had been complicit in this elaborate deception. My dad's mom, the woman who smelled of cinnamon and always had a hug ready, had helped my mother hide her past, and in doing so, had helped construct the entire scaffolding of my life on a foundation of lies. "David, you all right up here?" My dad's voice from the bottom of the attic stairs jolted me. I shoved the letters back into the wooden box, my hands shaking so violently I almost dropped them. "Yeah, Dad, just, dusty," I called back, my voice sounding unnaturally high to my own ears. He came up a few minutes later carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. He took one look at my face. "You look like you've seen a ghost, son." I forced a laugh. Just tired. All this dust is getting to me." I quickly changed the subject, pointing to an old lamp. "Hey, do you remember this? Graham used to have it in the living room way back when." He fell for it, thankfully. But inside I was screaming. My head was a dizzying whirlwind of questions, suspicions, and a gut-wrenching sense of betrayal. I took the box of letters with me when I left that day, hiding it in my backpack. I knew I couldn't confront my parents yet. I needed to understand, to process. I reread the letters dozens of times that night, each word chiseling away at the image I had of my family, of myself. The letters revealed that my mom had run away from home when she was young after getting pregnant. Her parents, Eleanor and Robert, the letter writers, were trying desperately to reconnect with her. They spoke of missing her, of wanting to meet their grandchild. The tone was always one of love and concern, never anger. They were good people, it seemed, caught in the wake of a young woman's desperate decisions.
And then there was my father, Mark, my dad. Did he know? How could he not? The letters clearly indicated that my paternal grandparents were involved from the start. They'd taken Helen in, a pregnant stranger, and helped her fabricate a new life. This meant my dad either knew and went along with it, or he was just as clueless as I was. But if he was clueless, it made my grandparents' deception even more profound, even more insidious. How could they let their own son marry a woman who was hiding such a monumental secret, especially one that directly involved their grandson? The thought made my stomach clench. I spent the next few weeks in a fog. I'd go to work, come home, and stare at the letters. I watched my parents with new eyes. Every affectionate gesture, every shared glance, every story they told about my childhood felt tainted. Were they just acting? Was their entire life together a performance for my benefit? My mom, especially, became a stranger. The quietness about her past now seemed less like shyness and more like a carefully constructed wall. Her gentle deflections, once innocuous, now felt like deliberate lies. I saw her hand, the one that used to comfort me, and wondered if it was the same hand that wrote letters to a family she abandoned. I finally decided I couldn't live with the uncertainty anymore. I chose my mom first. It felt right. She was the epicenter of this secret. One Tuesday evening, after my dad had gone to bed, I found my mom in the living room, reading. I sat across from her, the wooden box with the letters on my lap. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Mom," I started, my voice hoarse, "we need to talk." She looked up, a soft smile on her face. "Of course, sweetheart. Everything all right?" I pushed the box across the coffee table. "Do you recognize this?" Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the box. Her smile faltered. She slowly reached out, her fingers tracing the worn wood. It looks familiar." "It was in Graham's attic," I said, my voice rising slightly despite my best efforts to keep it calm. "And these were inside." I took out the bundle of letters, untied the ribbon, and spread them out on the table. Her gaze fixed on the letters, and all the color drained from her face. Her hands began to tremble. Her eyes, usually so warm and kind, were now filled with a mixture of fear, shame, and a profound sadness. "Helen?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. It was the name Eleanor had used in the letters. "Eleanor, I, I, I haven't seen these in years." "They're from your parents, aren't they?" I asked, my voice cold, detached, even to myself. "Your real parents." She flinched as if I'd struck her. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring them. "David, oh, David, I was going to tell you. I always meant to. I couldn't." And that's when the dam broke. Not just for her, but for me. I felt a surge of anger, a hot, uncontrollable wave that made my vision swim. "Couldn't, Mom. My entire life has been built on a lie. You let me believe one thing, and all this time there was a whole other family, a whole other truth hidden from me. Why? Why would you do this?" She began to sob, silent, racking sobs that shook her whole body. "It was so long ago, David. I was so young, so scared. I made so many mistakes." She finally managed to speak between gasps for air. "I ran away when I was 17. I was in a bad relationship with a boy who was older, manipulative. I got pregnant. I couldn't tell my parents. They were strict, traditional. I knew they'd be heartbroken, ashamed. I couldn't face them." She explained that she had traveled aimlessly, eventually ending up in our town, destitute and terrified. She had collapsed in a local diner, and my grandmother, a regular there, had seen her. My grandmother, ever the compassionate soul, had taken her in, no questions asked, only concern. When she learned Helen was pregnant and alone, she and my grandfather had made a decision. They would help her. They'd tell people she was a distant relative, a niece perhaps, staying with them temporarily. When I was born, they would claim me as their own, an unexpected late-life child. But then she choked out, "Mark, your dad, he came home from college for the summer. He met me. We fell in love. It was fast, intense. He didn't know about my past, about the truth. Your grandparents were worried. They thought if he knew, he'd leave. They convinced me to keep it quiet, to let him believe, to let everyone believe you were his. My head was spinning. So, Dad, he's not my biological father? The words tasted like ash in my mouth. She shook her head, her face a mask of agony. No, David, he's not. The world tilted. The man who taught me how to ride a bike, who stayed up with me when I was sick, who held my hand through every challenge, wasn't my father. The man I loved and respected more than almost anyone in the world. And my other family, Eleanor and Robert, did you ever try to contact them? She nodded, wiping tears from her face. After a few years, after things settled, I sent them a letter. I wanted them to know I was okay, that the baby was okay, but I told them I couldn't be a part of their lives, for everyone's sake. I couldn't risk revealing everything. I asked them not to contact me again, for my son's safety, for his stability. I told them I had found happiness, a new family. It was a lie. David. A selfish, terrible lie. She gestured to the letters. They didn't listen, bless their hearts. They kept trying. Your grandmother, she kept them hidden. She wanted to protect me. Protect us. Protect us from the truth? I snapped, the anger returning with a vengeance. Mom, you were supposed to be honest with me. My entire identity is a fabrication. We argued for hours that night, the conversation a raw, painful excavation of decades of secrets. She poured out her guilt, her fear, her justifications. She told me about the boy, my biological father, who had been abusive and had fled town when she told him she was pregnant. She said she genuinely feared for my safety if he ever found out about me. She genuinely believed she was doing the right thing, protecting me from a dangerous past and giving me a stable, loving home with Mark and his family. I couldn't comprehend it. How could a decision made out of fear, however well-intentioned, snowball into such a monumental deception? How could she watch me grow up, loving a man who wasn't my biological father, and never once feel compelled to tell me? The next day was even harder. I knew I had to talk to my dad. I waited until the evening, after dinner when my mom was out running errands, a convenient excuse to avoid the inevitable. I found my dad in his workshop, sanding a piece of wood, the familiar scent of sawdust filling the air. Dad, I started, my voice tight. We need to talk. About something serious. He looked up, wiping his hands on a rag. His eyes, usually so calm and kind, looked tired. I know, son. Your mother told me you found the letters. My heart sank. He knew. All this time he knew. And he'd let me believe the lie too. You knew? I asked, the words barely escaping my throat. All this time? You let me believe you were my father when you weren't? He put down his tools, his shoulders slumping. He looked older, wearier than I'd ever seen him. Come sit down, David. He gestured to a couple of old crates. He started his story, his voice low and steady, a stark contrast to my mom's emotional outpouring. He told me he met Helen and instantly fell in love with her. He knew she was pregnant, but he didn't care. He was young, idealistic, and deeply smitten. He wanted to marry her, to raise her child as his own.
His parents, however, were vehemently against it, not because Helen was pregnant, but because of the circumstances. They feared for his future, his reputation, but they saw how much he loved her. They came around, eventually, he said, staring at his calloused hands. They saw how much I loved you, even before you were born. They saw how much Helen loved you. We made a decision, all of us, to protect you, to give you a fresh start, away from the trouble Helen had gotten herself into. It was easier to say I was the father. No questions, no judgments, just a new family, a clean slate. He said he always intended to tell me when I was older, when the time was right, but the right time never came. He got caught up in the rhythm of life, the joys of fatherhood, and the secret became too big, too ingrained to unravel. He feared losing me, feared what the truth would do to our family, to the life they had painstakingly built. "David," he said, looking at me, his eyes pleading, "you are my son. Biology doesn't change that. I raised you. I loved you every single day. I chose to be your father. That's real, David. That's true." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to cling to the comfort of those words, but the betrayal was too fresh, too raw. "You let me live a lie," I repeated, the phrase a bitter mantra. "For 32 years, you let me live a lie." The confrontation with my parents was devastating. There were tears, recriminations, desperate apologies. I felt like a stranger in my own home, looking at people I thought I knew, people who were now completely altered in my eyes. I needed space. I moved out for a month or so, staying with a friend. I needed to breathe, to figure out who I was, stripped of the narrative I had always accepted as truth. I spent countless hours searching online for Eleanor and Robert and my biological father's name, which my mom eventually gave me. It was a strange, unsettling dive into an unknown past. I found them. Eleanor and Robert. They were still alive, living in the same town from the letters. They had never stopped looking for Helen, for me. It took a lot of courage, a lot of deep breaths, but I eventually wrote them a letter. I told them who I was, how I found them, and asked if they would be willing to meet. Their response came quickly, a handwritten letter, trembling with emotion. They were overjoyed, incredulous, filled with a lifetime of unanswered questions and unspoken love. Meeting them was surreal. It was like stepping into an alternate reality. They were everything the letters suggested, kind, gentle, full of warmth. They cried when they saw me, hugging me tightly, telling me how much they had missed their daughter, how much they had yearned for their grandchild. They had photos of my mom as a child, stories of her mischievous youth, a history I had been completely deprived of. It was bittersweet. I gained a family, but it highlighted everything I had lost. I also learned more about my biological father. He was, as my mom described, a troubled individual. He had a history of petty crime and had spent time in and out of jail. He passed away several years ago, so there was no possibility of meeting him. Part of me was relieved. Part of me felt a hollow ache for what could have been, for the questions that would now forever remain unanswered. The relationship with my adoptive parents, Mark and Helen, is slowly, painstakingly being rebuilt. It's still fragile, riddled with unspoken pain and lingering trust issues. My mom is in therapy,
trying to deal with the decades of guilt and fear she carried. My dad is doing his best, but there's a quiet sadness in his eyes that wasn't there before. I know they love me. I believe they acted out of a misguided attempt to protect me, to give me a better life. But understanding their motivations doesn't erase the years of deception. I've come to realize that family isn't just about biology. Mark is my father. He chose me, he raised me, he loved me unconditionally. That bond is undeniable, unshakable, even in the face of this colossal lie. And my grandparents, who helped facilitate all of this, were also acting from a place of love and protection, however flawed their methods. But I also now have Eleanor and Robert, my biological grandparents, who represent a part of myself I never knew existed. They fill a void I didn't even know I had, giving me a sense of lineage, of connection to a past that was once a blank page. This experience has fundamentally reshaped my understanding of truth, lies, and the complexities of human relationships. I used to believe in clear-cut good and bad, right and wrong. Now I see the vast, murky gray in between. People make choices out of fear, out of love, out of desperation, and those choices can have ripple effects that last for generations. I'm still navigating this new landscape. It's messy, it's painful, and it's nowhere near resolved. There's a constant push and pull between gratitude for the love I received and resentment for the truth that was withheld. There's the joy of discovering a new family, balanced by the grief of a shattered past. I suppose the biggest lesson I've learned is that life isn't a straight line. It's a winding path, full of unexpected turns and hidden chapters. And sometimes, to truly understand who you are, you have to confront the uncomfortable truths, even if it means dismantling everything you thought you knew. It's a journey of self-discovery I never anticipated, a constant process of reconciliation with the past and acceptance of a much more complicated present. I'm hoping, with time, that peace will come. For all of us. Thanks for letting me get this off my chest, Reddit. It helps more than you know.